Connor, middle name, last name.
That's me.
My hatred for you has never burned more fiercely or more intensely than it does at this exact moment during the recording of the third episode of our premiere podcast.
I can't believe you turn on me like this. It's like a dark influence has taken over you now.
Well, for the last month, Connor, we've been floating along on a beautiful dream of Capcom's masterpieces.
Are we going to call Clock Tower a masterpiece?
We played the two most influential Capcom games ever released in 2005.
So much so that the Clock Tower 3 was released on nothing. Nothing except for the PS2.
Yeah, so we were having a wonderful time. We were talking about great games that we loved. And then you were like, what if I bring a game to the table?
Yeah, well, that was the thing. This was early days, sorry.
This is the first game that you ever brought to my attention.
Yeah, because I just went, all right, we're playing Clock Tower 3. This is clearly a funny bad game. I think it'd be good if we play Shadow the Hedgehog. That's a funny bad game.
Shadow the Hedgehog.
I mean, I'm not looking forward to the thumbnail of this podcast because our artist Sen is either going to draw us as Sonic OCs or he's going to draw you as Maria getting shot.
Finally.
And I don't know which is going to be worse.
I think the Maria one would be more appropriate, Connor, because not to poison the well before we start talking about Shadow the Hedgehog, but the experience of playing Shadow the Hedgehog is almost akin to being shot.
Would you... So, in which case, I'm going to stretch this analogy a little bit.
Yeah.
At what point is Shadow the Hedgehog the sudden bullet that pierces into your flesh and the metal like hangs inside your wound? And what part of it is you desperately losing blood and losing life as you slowly die out?
So, the intro to the game is you've decided to walk down an unfamiliar dark alleyway.
Okay, yeah, actually.
And as you stroll down this dark path, you think to yourself, I don't know if this was a good idea. I feel like I maybe made the wrong choice here. You then get into the gameplay, you move Shadow once, you are shot.
Damn!
And the rest of the game, and the rest of you dying, that is the path you are going down.
Honestly, yeah. That's a pretty good way of putting it. So welcome to Shadow the Hedgehog.
So let's take a step back. I feel like when we were doing Clock Tower and Resident Evil 4, we took a moment to describe the circumstances in which we played those games.
Yeah.
And I'd like to do the same with Shadow the Hedgehog as well, because Shadow the Hedgehog situation is slightly unique.
Yeah, it is a little bit. This was when we were making this something that we actively did and were taking turns.
This was game 2.
Yeah, this was game number 2. In the middle of Clock Tower, I said, let's do Shadow after this, and I brought Shadow along over to Ash's house. And we popped it in and played it, and I think a part of you died that day because you acted like you were dead. It was
So when I was making that analogy of being shot, that is I'm not being flippant. That is how it's not how I felt playing that game, but that game really has an effect on my mental state that it's hard to describe.
Yeah.
I become a gibbering, stammering mess of a person.
Yeah. It is almost like Shadow the Hedgehog, the experience of playing it is a bit like the experience of going to war. You develop a weird shell shock as it's a cacophony of noise, nonsense, and just horrible design. You move so quickly, like your feet are made of butter, and you slide around. You might careen off the edge of a level because you think you figured out how like jumping or the homing attacks work, and you just get thrown into oblivion. Everything just shoots you. Sometimes it's things that aren't even on screen, so you don't know what the fuck is going on. Characters are constantly talking, some of which have crucial information that you will just miss.
Yeah.
And it's all for this absolute bamboozlement of a game that, yeah, frankly, you just become paranoid. You just go, you either slow down and shut down, or you are like, you become so twitchy as you're trying to navigate this nightmare mess of a game.
Yeah, I mean, you can probably describe it better than I can because you're the one watching it. But literally everything that happens in that game, I just sit there and I go, oh, no! I just make weird little like, oh, no!
You do, yeah.
So, Connor, before we get too much further into the specifics of the game, surely this is not truly a problem though, right? Because this was 3 years ago. We did our time.
Oh, yeah.
We played Shadow the Hedgehog the one time, and then it was over, and we were all free.
Yeah, and then as the list continued on, I then said to Ash, "What if we play Shadow the Hedgehog again?"
And for you, dear listener, our loyal and wonderful audience, I agreed to sell my soul again to Shadow the Hedgehog.
Look, it's important. Shadow the Hedgehog has 10 different endings. We needed to see at least 2 of them.
I mean, the important piece of context here, and the reason why I'm spending so long on this particular story, is that we finished Shadow the Hedgehog about 30 minutes ago.
Yeah. So for the second time, for the record.
Yeah.
And that was it in part because I thought it would be important for us to get a refresher on this game. Like, Shadow the Hedgehog as a game is very personal to me because this was a game I grew up with, and we can get into the specifics of that in a few minutes. But this is not something that surrounded you, so I thought it was important you had some fresher memories of it.
Yeah, and the thing is, right, is that there's a few things about Clock Tower. So Resident Evil 4 kind of doesn't count because that's a game that I've played so many times. Clock Tower is another game that we played 3 years ago, but Clock Tower is so doofy that it's very memorable.
Yeah, it's hard to forget.
I think for the podcast, we literally just played like 10 minutes of it, right? We just walked around and remembered how it controlled and things like that.
Yeah, I remembered, I played the first 3 kind of boss area levels, but then we just sat down and did like 10-15 minutes of it, which... it means that in the final episode, we've missed out some of the minutiae, I think, of certain details. For instance, one thing I hate that we forgot to mention was that during the last boss fight thing, the ghosts of all the subordinates are dancing around on a tomb.
Yeah, we did forget that.
Which I really wish we'd remembered that in that episode. But
meanwhile, Shadow the Hedgehog for me was nothing but a blue blur. I remembered the feeling of Shadow, not many of the specifics. And I'm overjoyed to share that the minute that I started moving around in the game again, it all came rushing back to me. I just suddenly, all these memories in my mind appeared, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have a bad time."
Yeah, and I'll say for any fans of Shadow here, I did do my best to portray Shadow in a better light because a
thankless task.
Yeah, our first playthrough of the game was on the PlayStation 2 version, arguably the worst.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even say arguably, it definitely was
the worst. Yeah,
because it runs incredibly slowly and suffers with a lot of slowdown. So looking up on the internet, I found out that the GameCube version is the best one because it runs at a consistent 60 frames per second. This is what several articles said. It does not run at a consistent 60 frames per second. It is still full of slowdown.
It was also disgustingly expensive as well.
Yeah. If you want to buy Shadow the Hedgehog these days from a pre-owned game shop, you'll probably find it for about £6. Shadow the Hedgehog on the GameCube is about 4 times more expensive. It's about £32.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it wasn't worth it.
no, it was not. I
might as well have just forked out for the Xbox version and spent another 8.
Yeah.
Because it would have been an inconsistent 60 frames. Which,
it would have been better than the PS2 version at the very least.
Yeah. Which, in any case, that's important to note is that this game came out in all 3 of the main consoles of the 6th gen.
Yeah.
Didn't get a PC port.
So what I want to do is I want to approach this introduction to the game from 2 angles. The first is I want you to talk about your personal experience with the game.
Yep.
Because this is one of the games of your childhood. This is a game that shaped you as a person.
It was, for better or worse.
Yeah, and then I want to spend some time talking about Sonic. Yeah. The Sonic franchise, where it was, how we got here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so if you'd like to start with your childhood.
Yeah, most certainly. Picture the scene. You are Yuji Naka, a man who will one day be arrested for insider trading.
Alright, I'm in jail.
And you are partially responsible for creating a little blue Needle Mouse character.
You're the core programmer.
And you have a certain passion and flair for this little man that you've made that has become widely successful and carried a company. At some point, you start to inject a little bit more of your own personal interests into this, and kind of expand it more in your image. For instance, you might be a big fan of Dragon Ball, and you decide that Sonic the Hedgehog needs to go Super Saiyan at some point.
Literally Super Saiyan.
Okay, quite literally.
When you put it like that, I've only just realized how it's just completely just that.
Yeah, it is almost exactly that, including collecting 7 things, the 7
and
Dragon
this
Balls.
is why Yuji Naka's in jail.
Yeah, because he ripped everyone off. And it gets to a point where you are suddenly the head of Sonic Team, and you're the main visionary behind this. And the 2000s hit like a fucking truck. Suddenly everything is dark and gothic, and the emos come out to play. Linkin.
My Chemical Romance is sweeping up the charts.
Yeah, Linkin Park. This, I would say, I'm talking more like Linkin Park,
like new metal.
Yeah, new metal. Blink-182 is suddenly fading into Slipknot and all of this stuff, and things want to get darker and grittier. And you, Yuji Naka, go, what if I make Vegeta in Sonic? And then you make Vegeta in Sonic, and you call him Shadow the Hedgehog, and he takes the Sonic fandom by storm. Meanwhile, in a small, decrepit island known as the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, a tiny little boy called Connor has just watched Star Wars Revenge of the Sith.
I presume he loved it.
And he loved it. He loved watching Anakin Skywalker melt in lava. And
it's a universal human experience.
Yeah, and he gravitated towards this cooler, darker stuff. And when he finds out that the funny little Sonic cartoon that he's been watching on television has a bunch of games and a bunch of expanded lore, he discovers this dark and edgy Sonic called Shadow. And he goes, wow. I'm not allowed to play Halo or Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto, but I can do all of those things through Shadow the Hedgehog.
So we're currently looking at Connor's 2 copies of Shadow the Hedgehog. His pride and joy. And what Connor would have seen as a wee lad is Shadow the Hedgehog, and he's standing in front of a big explosion.
Yeah.
And he's holding a sniper rifle, it looks like. I can see what drew you in. This is...
See, you call that a sniper rifle. That gun is not in the final game. That looks like a fucking, paintball gun.
Fucking false advertising on Shadow the Hedgehog.
It probably was originally going to be like an MP5,
Yeah.
and they had to change it to sell to a wider audience.
What were they thinking?
What were they thinking? And what was I thinking? I know what I was thinking. I thought the Shadow the Hedgehog was the coolest shit.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that, I've beaten this game, especially if we include our 2 playthroughs, I've beaten this game probably 14 times.
Oh, so it's your Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, this is my Resident Evil 4! But one I don't look upon very fondly. This is, I don't think this game is any good.
No.
And I wouldn't even say that I particularly like this game, but it speaks to a very particular part of my childhood that, I look upon and I kind of laugh at it in a sort of, not to mock it,
okay,
but more
You're
to
laughing
kind of,
with it.
Yeah, I'm laughing with it to go like, I remember when this was me, right?
Did you like this game as a child?
Well, I did, yeah.
Yeah.
I think there were times where I would argue that my 2 favorite video games were Shadow the Hedgehog and Warhammer 40,000 Fire Warrior.
It's really nice that you could admit such horrible crimes.
I know. But that's because I didn't know any better. I was just like, oh, these are the gun games I have, and these are the ones I think make me cool.
Oh, that's a good point that you say a gun game, because the developers of Shadow the Hedgehog have apparently described it as a gun action game.
Oh yeah, we took a brief look at the development history. What little of it's really recorded online, and that's what Sonic Team themselves called it. And they chose Shadow as the main character, 1, because he was very popular after Sonic Adventure 2, and I guess Sonic Heroes, and 2, who the fuck... You're not going to give Tails the Gat, right?
I mean, there's the thing that I find most amusing about the game's Wikipedia entry is that it tries to justify the existence of the game, and the only thing it can give you is, I guess Shadow was popular.
Yeah.
It makes this game seem like the most creatively bankrupt thing, where they were just our dark, edgy man is popular, we'll make a gun game.
It really does. I mean, one could argue the Sonic series has been fairly creatively bankrupt for a while. Maybe wrapping back round to doing its own things, but we're a little bit biased against the series in general, I think.
So let's give a brief overview of Sonic the Hedgehog and what was leading up to this game.
Yeah, certainly. Go ahead.
So, in 1991, Sega released Sonic the Hedgehog for the Sega Mega Drive.
They did.
And it was bad.
Yeah, although at the time...
Yeah.
At the time, people thought it was the hottest shit.
Yeah. They then made Sonic 2, also bad.
No. No. I actually argue against that.
See, this is where I'm going to poison the argument with my dangerous beliefs that all Sonic games are terrible.
Okay, okay.
Alright. So they made Sonic, the trilogy on the Mega Drive, and it was very good.
It was beloved.
It carried the Genesis/Mega Drive. It's a very well-regarded series. However, when it came to transition the series into 3D, like so many other video game series, it had a great deal of difficulty. They tried to do something on the Saturn, Sonic Extreme.
Yeah, that
looked like a weird Mario Galaxy-looking thing.
Yeah.
Didn't go anywhere. But they finally struck gold, I'm doing little quotation marks with my hands, with Sonic Adventure 1 for the Dreamcast.
Yep. which they really because Sonic, the trouble with it's kind of been done to death, this sort of discussion, but as early as Sonic 3, the makers of the series didn't know what the hell to do. Sonic 3D Blast, Sonic R, like a ton of different little spin-off games were being released. While they were trying to find their footing and make their next big mainline, and Sonic Adventure ended up being the one that landed and released.
It's something that I actually find is a slight tangent, but it's something that I find really interesting about Sonic inherently, is that he is a franchise that is made in opposition to something.
To oppose Mario.
Yeah, to oppose Mario, basically.
And since then, he kind of since then has been trying to find his footing after that point. Because he put a good competition up with Mario, didn't win, but he for a while Sega was leading that race back in the
in the US market at least. They were doing pretty well.
Yeah, but as time went on, Sonic had to suffer through the same issues every platformer had, arguably, which was how the fuck do we do 3D? With mixed results, really.
So they released Sonic Adventure 1 for the Dreamcast in 1998 in Japan and 99 in the rest of the world.
Oh, really?
And it was... people like it.
Yeah, that's the thing, is there are a lot of people who like Adventure 1 and 2.
Yeah. And it's definitely at the time as well, right? It was definitely well received.
Yeah, exactly. Which, in any case was kind of a good thing that people enjoyed those games. Like the modern zeitgeist of Sonic discussions are to talk about how, probably quite a few people share your opinion that the Sonic series was flawed from the start. And we can it's especially easy to say that in retrospect when you can look at who Sonic was opposing, what he was surrounded by, and how those things did stuff better. If I was to inject my own personal bias in that area as well, I would argue that something like Crash Bandicoot did a better job of 3D platforming than Sonic did in Adventure 1 and 2. Yeah. But it is in some cases apples and oranges, because Sonic wasn't trying to be like, say, a precision platformer, whereas Crash was, despite the fact that Mario, who that led that market, had given up precision platforming in exchange for open space 3D.
Yeah, so I do want to kind of walk back my previous Sonic comments, because we are living in the modern era, as all people are. And it's very, very easy to dislike Sonic now.
Yeah.
It's been a long, difficult century for him. He's had a difficult time. But I was very much struck the other day, you, I, and our podcast artist watched a few episodes of Sonic X.
Yeah, we did.
And I was very struck by how much going back to classic 2D Sonic, I was like, I actually like Sonic.
Yeah. There is actually good stuff about it. I think the Sonic series doesn't help itself.
No.
It always chases some weird dream or weird vision of what it wants to be, and I do kind of offload that on Yuji Naka, even though it probably isn't his fault.
No.
That, like, to be darker, to be better, to be bolder, to be more ambitious, and yet I agree that there are parts of Sonic I like.
Yeah.
For instance, if I was to share my guilty pleasures a little bit here, I like the first Sonic cartoon that came out, The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. The one where it's very zany and has this cartoon logic where Dr. Robotnik is played by the sadly deceased Long John Baldry, where he's got a lot of charm to him.
Yeah.
The Sat AM cartoon, that's sometimes just called Sonic the Hedgehog, goes for a really dark tone, and the fan base has never shut up about it after, because people really like that cartoon's tone.
See, I was a Sonic Underground girl.
Yeah, well, I watched a lot of Sonic Underground as well, and that one I was enamored by as a kid, but nowadays I don't see what I saw in that.
I've never gone back to it.
Sonic Underground is honestly garbage. Like I think we should watch it because it would be funny.
Tune in for our live stream of us watching Sonic
Underground. Yeah. But as far as other guilty pleasures are concerned, like the trio of characters that eventually became known as Team Dark, which is Shadow, Rouge, and Omega, which is a robot. Rouge being a bat with boobs. Jesus Christ, Sega. I like that trio as a dynamic. I really like their vibe. There's something about them that I find very entertaining.
Yeah.
With them interacting together and being like secret agents and shit. But
I always I feel like Omega is stoicism at the end of that scale, and then Rouge is the other end of kind of mischievous seductiveness.
Yeah.
And then Shadow is like in the middle.
Yeah.
And I love that that chemistry between the three of them.
I'd actually argue Shadow, it depends on what version of Shadow you're talking about, but Shadow's sometimes the stoic one, whereas occasionally Omega can be the one that is so blunt that he kind of breaks the ice and can be a bit of a comic relief, but again, it kind of depends on which Shadow.
Yeah, they're a good combination.
Yeah.
However, not used to great effect
No.
in the game we're talking about, Shadow the Hedgehog.
No, this is a solo venture where Shadow, the story is solely about him, and any character that appears in it is to supplement his journey. It's not about... He doesn't go along and do things with other people. He doesn't talk to other characters in the same way. This is a sole journey where the direction of Shadow's character is in your hands.
Yeah, like you were referring to earlier, we did do some limited research on this game's development. There doesn't seem to be much out there, but from what we can tell, Sonic Adventure 2 came out, and Shadow became very popular, and Sonic Team just went, we'll make a game about Shadow then.
Yeah, it's there's a weird cycle, not cycle, but a recurring pattern of the Sonic Team producing a character who's designed to be the cooler alternative to Sonic.
Yeah,
a character that was already designed to be the cooler alternative to other platformers like Mario. So you get Knuckles, and then you get Espio, and then you get
Silver,
Shadow. Yeah, Silver I think is meant to be the cooler Shadow, and that did not fucking work.
It's like a weird power scale.
It is a weird power scale. When they get into magic powers and shit, and the human worlds to make it more grounded, it's a whole thing. But
so Shadow the Hedgehog was released for all three major consoles at the time, the PS2, the Xbox, and the GameCube, in 2005, same year as Resident Evil 4 for those keeping track. And it did great.
Well, sales-wise, it did great. Critical reception, it fucking didn't.
This got savaged, right? I don't know if it's the worst rated Sonic game, but it must be down there. I think we were looking at 49 on Metacritic.
Yeah, it's not the worst. Worst rated, but this is one of the reasons why I want to talk about this on the podcast. A lot of people know about the plight of Sonic. And they know about...
You saying that just makes me think of like those, please donate £2 a month. You can help Sonic.
Yeah, you can help him pick himself back up. Where people talk about the games that got really bad. And the games that people always say are, these are the worst Sonic games. It's always Sonic 06 that came out a year after this. Sonic Boom, which was a... kind of slapdash Wii U game that was made by a third party that wasn't Sonic Team. Big Red Button, yeah. And Sonic Forces, which is when they tried to inject the darker tone of the cartoon into a standard Sonic game.
Yeah.
They also tried to combine it with one of their more successful modern titles, Sonic Generations, and didn't work out.
No.
And those are the ones that most people say, these are the worst Sonic games. Everyone glosses over this, and they shouldn't.
It is important that the people know about Shadow the Hedgehog.
No, that's the thing. That always bamboozles me. Shadow is one of the worst Sonic games.
Yeah.
It's one of the worst mainline, at the very least.
It's also fascinating in the ways in which it is bad. Like, there's something about how slapdash it is, how poorly conceived the whole construction of the thing is, that, to me, that's much more interesting than Sonic Forces is boring.
Yeah. Sonic Forces was very glitchy on launch, for one thing, and... some people praise the fact that game was going like, you can make your own character. That's just what the fandom wants. But I also kind of take it with a very cynical, great, cool, fucking... I can't find the words. But this isn't a podcast about Sonic Forces.
This game, it just doesn't work.
No.
Like, on any level.
No, this is... It's a game that... I mean, that's the thing. A game that functions.
Well, it's like... It functions by the specifications of the game design that they made. It's just that their game design is awful.
Yeah, it absolutely is. If the box art doesn't tell you enough about this game, then the fucking opening will.
Yeah, so young Connor, he got his dear old mum to buy him a PS2 copy of Shadow the Hedgehog. Don't know if that's how it happened, but that's how I'm imagining it.
I think I traded something in and got this in return.
Yeah. Oh, that's even better.
Yeah.
You had to give something up.
I did.
Your soul.
The law of equivalent exchange.
Yeah. So you take Shadow the Hedgehog home, you load it into your PS2, and what are you greeted with?
So I'm greeted with gunshot sounds in the menu. I'm treated with Shadow loading an MP5 as the enormous moon envelops his silhouette.
It's like this big moonshot, and Shadow walks into frame holding a gun.
Yeah, he walks in holding this fucking gun as the city is being assailed by a horrible demon alien threat, and he grabs the gun and he cocks the MP5 by the receiver.
Yeah, which is the first sign of things not being quite right.
Yeah, before then cutting to him on a motorcycle driving into a giant monster.
Yeah.
These bat-like horrible things flying around, these military guys with guns desperately shooting.
And is it a Crush 40 classic?
It is a Crush 40 classic.
It's like, let's we try and imitate it. It's
the song I Am. I see no, feel no evil. Black writings on the wall. God, Alright, I know that song off by heart.
Yeah.
I know quite
I remember, like, one of the shared memories that I have between both of our playthroughs is you just singing the entire fucking song.
Yeah.
And I think me slowly turning to you, just like, what are you fucking
Listen, I'll give Shadow the Hedgehog one thing. Now that cringe is dead and you can just enjoy things unironically, Shadow the Hedgehog's soundtrack is kind of great.
It's definitely very memorable.
Yeah, it's a time capsule of the mid 2000s. Yeah, it's very much clinging to the inspirations of our old buddy Chester Bennington in Linkin Park. And
God rest his soul.
God rest his soul. I mean, what do you think he would have thought of Shadow the Hedgehog?
You can't ask me that, man. I don't have a good answer for you. That's like the fucking what would Napoleon Bonaparte think of Danganronpa bit. It's like I don't know, man.
Oh my fucking god! But
yeah. So Shadow was rocking his way through this dark, gritty ass introduction.
Yeah.
Culminating in my favorite part, which is when he's standing over a soldier and it cuts to Shadow and he's like freaking, he's like going. Argh!
Yeah, he's mad at this guy who's just beaten up, and Sonic fucking dies.
Yeah,
Shadow's holding a gun. The implications Shadow shot him.
Yeah, it's a fucking mood, man.
Yeah,
it's so powerful.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And then from that point on, the colourful tone and visuals that you would expect from a Sonic game, especially when you contrast this to Sonic Heroes that came out 2 years prior. This is fucking this is greys and browns and blacks all the way through.
This ain't your grandpa's Sonic the Hedgehog.
Hell no, it ain't. And I can say that because this game was rated 12 in Europe and fucking E10 in America.
We can do my other favourite part of looking at the box, which is looking at the ratings on here.
Yeah.
So this game is rated a 12 because of violence and bad language.
Yeah, it is.
Sonic says darn.
Yeah, they say damn as well. Espio and Knuckles do too because they're allowed.
And the Gun Commander.
The Gun Commander, a very important character who I want to get into.
So this is I think we should talk about the gameplay now.
Yeah, before I go into fucking characters. Jesus.
So this is something that I really, really want to get across. It's going to be difficult to. When you press start in Sonic and you watch this opening cutscene, and it's really funny.
Yeah.
Because Shadow is standing in like a park, in like a public park, and he's got his hand on this tree, and he's like, why can't I remember anything apart from this name, Maria? And then he's like looking out over the sky, and then suddenly 1,000 million troops of darkness just fall out of the sky.
These dark red clouds like wash over the skyline as aliens just drop out from the heavens onto this random city.
And Shadow's just watching it, and he goes, why should I care about these humans? They're so pathetic.
Yeah. And that's when he's confronted by Mephistopheles, who fucking floats out of the ground and says, Shadow, I know your past. Give me the 7th Chaos Emerald. And Shadow goes, what? And suddenly explodes.
Yeah. Well, he's like, he knows my name. That means I have to do everything he says.
Yeah. And then he skates off to go and do it.
And then you start playing Shadow the Hedgehog.
You do.
And this is the thing that I need to make you all understand. It starts happening to you, and that's when you've been shot.
Yeah.
And you're looking at it, and you're like, wait, you're just flying through the screen, and suddenly you're trying to move Shadow, and he's like on skates.
Yeah.
And you're just shifting all around, and everyone's yelling at you, and there's all this noise.
Yeah.
And it's so immediately terrible. It's so immediately just, I'm not gonna enjoy this, am I?
Yeah, this is why I compare this to Shell Shock, right?
Yeah.
You've just been sent over the top, and you're being bombarded with noise, explosions. You're looking around, you're like, wait a second, is that my friend Sonic? Oh god, wait, no, I'm on the other side now. I have to kill all these men. And
so, in many ways, the game does adhere to the boost formula, I think is what people call it.
No, this isn't.
What?
Oh. No.
Are you telling me I've got my Sonic facts wrong?
No. The boost formula specifically comes from Unleashed, where you could press a button and Sonic would just naturally go faster, like he'd do a big boost.
All right.
This is a pre-boost world where they did the opposite, where they went, okay, when you move the stick, Sonic/Shadow will just consistently accelerate forward quickly. which in this game means you go into these tiny environments and you immediately fall off the fucking edge because you just careened off a cliff.
I think the sentiment that I was trying to express is that this is very much on the surface Sonic Heroes, Sonic Adventure style Sonicking.
Yeah, where you just...
That same movement.
Yeah, a little bit. I think the Adventure series is slightly tighter, but that being said, I would argue that this has a very similar movements to Heroes, where it is, again, very slippery, very fast, as you say. And people give this game, the few people who do acknowledge Shadow the Hedgehog, give Shadow the Hedgehog shit for this, but they don't give Sonic Heroes it. And Sonic Heroes controls almost exactly the fucking same.
Yeah.
Which I find ludicrous. I kind of want to have my cake and eat it too with this game, because I do think this is one of the worst Sonic games. It does some things better than Sonic Heroes, and I don't get why Sonic Heroes gets a free pass.
Yeah, you've got a real bone to pick.
I don't like Sonic Heroes. I think it's
this is secretly an anti-Sonic Heroes podcast.
Oh yeah.
Tell your friends.
That's my stint towards this. Yours is Sonic was never good. Mine is Sonic Heroes was never good.
Yeah. So you're Shadow and you're running through Westopolis, and so it's very squirrely. Shadow kind of careens all over the place, just like bouncing from area to area. Jumping is like, he does the little homing attack, but sometimes he'll just home right off the stage, like not towards an enemy.
The game will just decide that something in front of you isn't the thing that you're locked onto. There's no way of telling what you're locking onto.
Yeah.
And you just end up just jumping into the abyss and dying.
Yeah.
And the same applies to the gunplay.
Yes. So you get your first pickup in the game.
Yeah, which is a fucking handgun.
A fucking motherfucking gun fuck.
Yeah, a gun fuck, a pistol that you can use to shoot guys with.
And that's when you suddenly realize that you are not in a world of sense and normality, because you are playing Sonic the Hedgehog and you are carrying a gun.
Yeah, you're carrying a semi-realistic Beretta 92 pistol, and you're shooting a bunch of alien/soldiers. Sometimes Eggman robots, but we'll get to the mustachioed man later.
So I think the gun stuff is like, it's very slapdash. It feels very much like it was added late into development to me.
And that's weird because it's a selling point.
Yeah, but it's like, to picture it, so you're just playing Sonic, and now he's holding a gun while he's running. And if you press B or whatever it is on PlayStation, he'll shoot the gun. And he kind of auto-locks on to people if you're facing their general direction.
Yeah.
And then you just bapping away. Just boop, 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 shooting the gun.
Boom, boom.
Yeah.
You can hold down the button to just fire a lot of shots consecutively, but you have so few rounds that you'll burn through it very quickly if you do that. Yeah. So other times you might decide that you're going to be precise and you might like jump up and shoot a guy once and then go and like careen yourself in the vague direction of what you're looking for and hope that you'll lock on with your next shot that connects. And neither playstyle is particularly fun because it either punishes you for being trigger happy and draining all your resources, or it just makes this into a very weird slow slog, which Sonic should not be about being slow.
Yeah. I think for me, the way that I always remember it is that you would be sitting next to me and you'd be like, Ash, what are you doing? You need to shoot that guy, or you need to jump here. And I'd be like, Connor, I'm so bamboozled. I can't even think about what I'm doing right now.
And yet, I say this in terms of, Sonic games should be about going fast. But as we mentioned about the movement, it's too slippery. It's too fast for the level geometry, I suppose, and the way that those are laid out.
Like, you're just flying from platform to platform, not really sure what it is that you're doing. You're just hoping that you don't die.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the camera gets stuck and just glitches through so many objects on the way to following you.
Yeah.
That it becomes so confusing.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't know where you are, or what you're doing, or what impact your controls are having on the game.
No, and basically everything you collide with hurts you. Which is worth probably mentioning about the enemies and what's lying around. Like generally speaking, you're normally confronted with human soldiers, aliens that are called the Black Arms, and or like Eggman robots. Those are typically the main three groups.
I think the thing that distinguishes it is that the enemies are at war with each other.
They are, They're usually almost always they're battling each other, but they will attack you.
They will, yeah.
Which is confusing as fuck because Black Doom comes to you in that opening cutscene to say, "Hey, help me and find the Chaos Emeralds, and I will help you." His troops still attack you.
Yeah, and it's the same with Gun as well.
Yeah, Gun attacks you very early on as well. They just suddenly turn on you. Gun is the name of the human troops. They are the Guardians of the United Nations.
Yeah. And it leads to situations in which, like, you'll be traveling with, like, Sonic or Knuckles or whatever, and you'll come across a battlefield in which the forces of the Black Arms are battling Gun.
Yeah.
And Sonic will be like, "Hey, Shadow, we gotta save Gun from these evil guys!"
Yeah.
And then you kill all the evil characters, and then the Gun guys just keep shooting you.
Yeah. And then if you attack them back, Sonic would go, "Hey, he's on our side." Like, do you want to give him the fucking memo that I'm on his?
Yeah,
like,
come on.
And that's something that's worth noting as well, is that you do encounter Sonic characters, including some new faces, some new
All your favorite Sonic characters.
Yeah.
Including Sonic, Knuckles, Gun Commander.
Oh, he doesn't follow you around, but he's
There's a great section on the back of the box, if I can return to that briefly.
Yeah.
The entire, like, driving thing of this game is that you decide what kind of Shadow you want to be.
Yeah.
So it says on the back, friend or foe, you decide, and it's got this rogue gallery, and it's like, Sonic, Dr. Eggman, Black Doom, Gun Commander.
Yeah. Which, weirdly, he's called the General on the GameCube version and the Commander on the PS2 version.
Yeah, sadly we couldn't confirm what he's called on the Xbox version.
No.
But if you have your own Xbox version, please write in.
Yeah, please leave us a comment.
Yeah.
But and the morality system is kind of the driving force of this game, and is handled kind of horribly.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, you choose like a particular companion to follow you around the level, and you help them with their task. Sometimes it's a very bog standard wipe out all of a certain faction on the map, like kill 45 aliens or that kind of thing.
I think a good example would be the first stage, Rosopolis, which is you can either get to the end of the mission, which is neutral. You can kill all of the gun soldiers, which is good. No,
bad.
sorry, evil.
Yeah.
And you can kill all the Black Doom soldiers, which is good.
Yeah. And those will take you into different levels depending on which one that you end up going down.
Yeah.
Shadow the Hedgehog overall has 22 levels on this little graph. And depending on what morality you follow, it leads you to a different final level and a different final boss.
Yeah.
There are 10 endings.
There are
to this
10
game.
endings. So actually, this is something I want to bring up, because there are only 10 like cutscene endings, but each individual path that you can take through the game, because you can careen all over the place. You can just go like up and down all you want, and you'll eventually get to a good or a bad ending.
Yeah.
Every individual path has its own name.
It does, yeah. There are 326 potential combinations. And all the names are like slapdashed together. There seems to be some kind of formula of what they end up calling themselves. Some very specifically unique, and others where you can tell the system doesn't work right. Because one of the endings I came up with was called like Machine Boys.
Machine Boys, yeah.
And another one was called Machines, which
implies that they just put like a big word dump into a thing and just said make a bunch of names.
Yeah, just if value X is this and if value Y is this, this is the final name.
So it's one of the weirdest comparisons that I've ever had to make in thinking about games. Is that Shadow the Hedgehog is like it's like Danganronpa or like Virtue's Last Reward. It has like a visual novel-esque flowchart.
Yeah.
Where you go down different paths depending on your actions and your choices.
Yeah, and the thing is, right, is in a tighter designed experience, that flowchart might make some level of coherent sense.
It's a really good idea.
I think it is, actually.
No, I'm not being sarcastic. I think it's a really smart idea, especially for a platformer, because it re-incentivizes you to go back through the levels, you know?
Yeah. And that's a really fun thing. But, for one, none of the levels make any sense as to why you end up from one to the other.
Yeah.
In some cases, it's vague. For instance, if you decide to go the full neutral route, you'll have one mission where it's a bunch of these temples, and Black Doom goes, "Oh, if you touch the jewels, these..." Sorry, I'll make his voice better. "If you touch the jewels, these will rise up into the air and become our big space battleships." And then there's a later level where you're on those, but they're in the sky, and you're doing a big air fight with Eggman. Yeah. But in other ones, it's just, okay, Shadow has just teleported to this place, and Sonic has picked him up in his taxi and gone, "Hey, we're going to space now!" And you just do that.
Yeah, so to get across the convoluted nature of how these levels progress, I'd like to actually go through the progression that we experience in our playthrough today.
This one today, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Because then we can kind of get across our experience, right?
Yeah, sure. I wouldn't mind sharing the R first route as well, because I remember that off by heart
so
too.
I'll do R1 today, and then you can do our first route.
Yeah, of course.
So every playthrough starts with the Westopolis level.
Yeah, which I'd like to iterate as the second reason why this branching pathway doesn't work great in this game, is that you have to do that level every time. If you want to go through 10 different endings, you have to play that one level 10 times.
Yeah, and it's not a level you want to play through 10 times.
No, God, absolutely not.
So we went through and we got the neutral ending, which always concerns you basically just going through the level without doing any of the bonus objectives.
Yeah.
So we ran through to the end, at which point Black Doom was like, Shadow, what the fuck? Why didn't you do my cool objective? And I'm going to punish you by taking you to this ancient temple.
Yeah, Shadow goes, no one tells me what to do, and then proceeds to follow what everyone tells him to do.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So you get teleported to this ancient Mayan temple, and then Knuckles shows up. And he's like, hey Shadow, I'm Knuckles.
Can we kill all these aliens?
Yeah, so we ran through the temple where the aliens were, because apparently there was something valuable. There's some crystals they need to activate.
Yeah.
For reasons.
Yeah.
After going through that, we then just teleport to a theme park.
Yeah, Shadow's just walking through a theme park going, where's the damn fourth Chaos Emerald?
But it's like, you get to the end of the level, and you do like the ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, and then you get your rank.
Yeah.
And then loading, why am I at this theme park?
Yeah. Oh, no. I mean, this is no blame on you for forgetting this, but don't you remember? It cuts to the president going, we won't surrender to the
terrorists,
aliens.
yeah.
And it has we won't surrender to terrorists. He's talking about the aliens.
The alien terrorists, yeah.
Which has nothing to do with our storyline. In some storylines, the president is relevant. Not our one. But he's always there.
Yeah, so we're walking through a theme park, and it's like, wait a second. This is a really garish theme park. It must be Eggman's!
Yeah.
And then you see Tails just fly along in a plane, and then he just drops a Chaos Emerald.
Yeah.
And Shadow's like, that's convenient.
Yeah, I'm just going to go for that, and he does, because we didn't want to collect 400 rings.
Well, because you go through it, and Tails wants you to steal all of Eggman's money, because it will be funny, presumably. And then, like, the whole thing is that you're walking through the levels, and, like, the good character and the evil character will be little side NPCs. But they won't, like, have a cutscene or anything. They'll just show up and be like, hey, you're working for me, right? Let's go!
Yeah, and they just assume you're on their side.
So Eggman shows up in a little robot that plays his voice, and he's like, oh, Shadow, it's good of you to come. Blow up all these robots for me. And then you don't, and he goes, what the fuck?
Yeah. Why would you do that? And then proceeds to pester you for the next 6 levels about the same shit.
So then we get through the end of this theme park level, and then it just cuts to, I think we see the actual, like, the United Nations president, and he's like looking at a picture of Shadow and Sonic, and he's like, those were the good old days.
Yeah, they saved us from tyranny and annihilation, which I wish every president had a picture of Shadow and Sonic framed on his fucking mantle.
We then cut to Shadow, and he walks into this, like, tech lab.
Yeah.
And, like, Charmy the Bee, SPO, and Vector?
Yeah, yeah, they are. They're trying to hack into Eggman's computer for some reason.
And then they're like, hey, Shadow, we're trying to hack into Eggman's computer, but we can't do it. And Shadow goes, I'm going to enter the cyber dimension. And they go, that's a great idea.
And they go into cyberspace.
Yeah, so you run around in cyberspace for a while, turning on all these terminals, which is the good mission in that level.
It is.
That achieves something.
Apparently the context for that is Shadow is trying to find data on who he is, and he finds nothing.
He finds nothing, but we then go to my favorite level in the game.
Lost
Impact?
Lost Impact.
Lost Impact, which is a flashback to Shadow's shadowy past.
Oh.
In which he learns that he had a friend.
Yeah, a friend called Maria, who was the daughter of the scientists that made him, and they were best friends on this space colony thing because there was nothing else to do there.
Yeah. But because we're giving them too much credit, because it's not like you see any of that.
No.
It just cuts to the base is being attacked, and Maria's like, Shadow, we gotta go! And it's like, who are you? What? Where are we?
Shadow goes like, I swear I'll protect you, but as a viewer, you're just like, huh?
Yeah, this is how I was reacting. It's just like, what's going on?
The only other thing that alludes to this person being a character or Shadow having any connection is in the intro cutscene of the game. Shadow goes, I have a vague memory of someone called Maria, and it flashbacks to a girl being shot.
Yeah. So you go through this level, which is awful. Like, it took us half an hour to beat it, because you're just going through these endless repeating corridors that all look the exact same, just like doing a bunch of turret sections. And then you get to the end of the level, and we didn't want to do the good ending.
No, because it would have put us on an infinitely worse final level.
Yeah. So we just got to Hug Father's lab, and then the game just cut, and that was it.
Yeah, and that was the end of the flashback. We then jump into the future. No, sorry, the present. My mistake. And the Space Colony arc is falling apart for some reason. And
No. So Shadow's on it.
Yeah.
And he walks up to this cage that has the Chaos Emerald. No security, apparently. He just walks up to it.
No.
He then just punches it, and it makes this comical sound.
He goes, "This is like taking candy from a baby." And that's what triggers the flashback. Is him doing that. And then when he teleports randomly onto the Space Colony arc in the present, he's just like, "Oh, what does it all mean? I don't understand." Which, that cutscene is meant to contextualize 3 different levels. As then the gun commander walks in.
Yeah. And he's like, "You took everything from me."
Yeah, he reveals that he was also on the Space Colony arc as a young boy, and Maria was like a sister to him.
Yeah.
And one time he sees Shadow in a tube.
Yeah, so he walks into Gerald Eggman's lab, or Gerald Robotnik's lab.
Yeah.
And he's standing there with Satan, with the devil, with fucking Black Doom.
Yeah.
And he's just like, "This probably isn't good."
And he sees Shadow in a tube, and he wakes up and he freaks out.
And so he's like threatening Shadow with a gun. He's like, "You took everything from me." And then Shadow goes, "I don't remember." And he goes, "Okay."
And he just gives up.
Yeah. And that's the last you see. That's the last we saw of the gun commander. He was gone.
Yeah, he had nothing to do with the story.
Yeah.
After that point.
Then the arc is just blowing up.
Yeah, for some reason.
Yeah,
It's just being destroyed.
And Vector's there.
Yeah, Vector the crocodile is on the arc with you, and he asks you to find a computer room.
Yeah.
For no reason.
I guess he wants more data.
Probably.
Yeah.
He's just a data fiend.
Basically, yeah.
And speaking of which, if your data is under threat of a Vector the crocodile invasion, this video is sponsored by nobody. This is not sponsored by a VPN.
Yeah, buying this copy of Shadow the Hedgehog has actually put Connor into financial ruin.
It has. So
if
now,
you could please sponsor this episode.
Yeah, please. We'll tie it in naturally to our next.
Yeah,
our
we'll
next
ad-lib it
episode.
in. It's going to be amazing.
At which point, getting to the computer room leads to Shadow and Vector, who is now relevant.
Well, he's relevant in the sense that he's just standing there. And he keeps going, "Don't worry, buddy, it's gonna be okay."
He's an emotional support crocodile.
Yeah.
As you confront Black Doom.
And Black Doom's like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, "I can't believe that you wouldn't follow my orders." And Shadow is like, You've got to reveal to me who I am." And Shadow, and at which point Black Doom goes, "I made you.
You're a part of me.
You're a part of me. You're a thing I made." And then you have a dumb battle with him.
Yeah, you have a dumb battle with him. Vector is there.
Vector is there.
Like, we managed to have it so that when we defeated Black Doom and it was doing his death cutscene, Vector was just standing next to him. Like, he was going to the ground and Vector was like, "Well."
"Oh, yeah, okay, I guess."
So then Shadow is just like, "This sucks, I'm really depressed." And Vector goes, "Don't worry, buddy, we'll figure it out." And that's the end.
Yeah, because Shadow's like, "I should never have been made if I was made to be a horrible monster." And he talks about how he has to take responsibility for his crimes.
Yeah, Shadow the fucking Hedgehog says on camera, "I have to take responsibility for my crimes."
Despite the fact that during this story, Shadow doesn't do anything wrong.
No.
Like following this thread entirely, Shadow goes through the nightmare that is Westopolis. He kills a bunch of the black aliens. Oh my god, they do call them black aliens in the game.
Yeah.
He kills a bunch of the.
I mean, we did kill a few gun soldiers on the way.
Okay, we did. Yeah, kills a bunch of the invading aliens. Runs through a theme park for no fucking reason. Finds some data. I
guess we stole Eggman's money.
I guess we did steal Eggman's money, a bit of Eggman's money.
Yeah.
Has a Vietnam flashback, and then finds the computer, and apparently that's him committing crimes.
Yeah.
Which makes me think what that ending should have been. It should have been on one of the, evil routes.
Yeah.
But an evil route where you suddenly pivot into being good near the end.
Yeah, like he begins to regret his actions.
Yeah. That would make a whole lot more sense.
Well, that wouldn't have required anything to make any sense.
No.
Because then we are treated to a lovely credit song.
Yeah, which is...
Which, Connor, can you do a rendition of that one as well?
Oh my god, I don't know all the lyrics, but it's called Chosen One. It's very much about, like... It's very
Call
much...
it a ballad.
Yeah, it's an angsty ballad about someone who has to remember who they are and believes they are some kind of chosen one that has to do good, but is burdened by the weight of the horrors of their past and
it's
all
very
this kind of
overwrought.
Stuff. It is, yeah. I don't remember the name of the band, but what I do know is that the band who wrote that song, I think they wrote a different song that they wanted to have in the game, but publishing rights stopped them, so they wrote an entirely new song for Shadow the Hedgehog.
Someone said to them, that's not the chosen one.
No. So then they made the chosen one.
Yeah. And then they held it up and went, he is the chosen one.
Because Shadow is the chosen one. He's chosen to do something, to steal your data.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, he just commits a few minor felonies, and then he gets really bummed out.
Yeah, which, that's the, like, neutral good ending to Shadow the Hedgehog. However, back in 2020, when we first played this, we did fairly close to a neutral run, where I think you wanted to do an evil run first, because you killed all the gun soldiers in Westopolis, and we then did another cyberspace level, but this time the idea was that it was the CIA's mainframe, and Rouge the Bat was there.
She's so pretty.
And she was like, hey, Shadow, why don't we, like, I don't know, we just get to the end of the level and you don't be a bad guy. And while Black Doom was like, no, you must delete the CIA, or something like that.
Yeah.
And that level was so drawn out and long, and the frame rate kept fucking crashing that you just went, fuck this, and we pivoted back to doing...
So when we were doing our original run, it was on the PlayStation 2 version of the game.
Yeah.
Which, once again, runs...
immaculately.
Perfectly.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
A smooth 30 frames per second. Oh, sorry, I mean 11 frames per second.
It might actually be the worst performing big budget game I've ever played in my life.
Yeah, it kept, like... I was kind of shocked.
Like, it kept freezing.
Yeah. And I didn't remember it doing that when I initially played as a child, but fuck,
Those
I guess...
innocent days, long gone.
Oh my gosh, yeah, recontextualized everything, and probably explained why sometimes I play that game and just get a headache.
Yeah.
Just the bombardment of noise from random explosions, from constant dialogue, from all of this conflicting information just overwhelms you. But that then led us back onto the neutral path with a level called Prison Island.
Prison Island.
Apparently that is a level in Sonic Adventure 2. It's a place that blows up, but seems to be fine in Shadow the Hedgehog. It's just full of chemical goo everywhere.
They don't care.
No, they don't care.
Yeah.
Charmy the Bee is there. He goes, hey, Shadow, find my secret discs! And naturally, we did not do that because fuck Charmy
Well, I think
the
we
Bee.
got to the point in which we were like, fuck doing any of these missions.
Yeah.
Let's just get through the levels.
Yeah, we just ended up gunning it to the end of the level, where it then cuts to Shadow on a big flying temple hanging out with Black Doom, just going, I didn't know these things could fly. And Black Doom's like, yeah, so what? Who the fuck is that? Is that Eggman? I'm stealing that joke from Snapcube, but yeah, that's.
We got pretty far about doing one.
Yeah, we did actually.
Yeah.
It'll probably be cut down a bit shorter, but we're an hour into recording.
Yeah.
Before doing a Snapcube reference.
But we're 2 years, well, maybe not 2 years, but we're a year into our lives of just constantly making Snapcube references.
I know.
Yeah.
Fuck it. That Shadow the Hedgehog live dub is I'm fucking obsessed with it. But
please seek it out.
Yeah, please do. It's a really funny video. But yeah, then I fucking forgot about the cutscene where Eggman becomes implicated in all this. For like a good chunk of the first half of the game, Eggman's got nothing to do with anything except for his weird circus. On this neutral route, however, it cuts to Eggman watching the intro to Shadow the Hedgehog on his computer and going, how am I going to rule the city if there is no city? And he sends his big robot armada to fight the Black Doom aliens.
Right, he's like, I'm the villain of Sonic the Hedgehog.
And that's when the neutral route just completely pivots to Shadow going, Eggman, he must know what's up. And immediately you just rush through this war. You find Eggman. And you go to his, like, iron jungle lab, where he's flying in a big Zeppelin blimp.
Yeah.
And the good route is to try and blow it up.
Impossible.
Which is, yeah.
Blow up the blimp challenge, impossible.
Yeah, it's very hard to do, especially on the PS2 version, because the blimp shoots back at you.
I think this is one of the archetypal moments that we have quite a lot when playing these games. When the game just so thoroughly destroys us that I'm just sitting there going, oh, God. And you're just like, Ash, do it. I'm like, no, you don't understand.
Yeah. And then I'm like, give me the controller. And to be fair, when we did the GameCube playthrough today, I kind of got to grips with the game relatively quickly. That PS2 one, I was not helping with that.
I was in a dark place.
Yeah.
Like that game just broke me.
I think we were literally in a dark place. We were playing that at like 10 p.m. and it just...
I mean, we're currently in a dark place right now. I want to take a brief moment to talk about our recording setup.
Oh yeah, if anyone's curious about our recording setup, and you might be saying, oh, how do they get a nice podcast setup going? Or you might be asking, why is the acoustic so terrible on this podcast? And the answer is our space, if you want to describe it, Ash.
Yeah, so we're packed in like little sardines. We're in what I would call a shoebox. Crowded around a desk, both hunched over this microphone.
Yeah.
With corners, curtains closed. We've lit a candle for mood. And we're just like hunched around this microphone like it's a fire.
Yeah.
And we're trying to talk about ghost stories.
Yeah, I've like propped my my duvet up against the wall to try and reduce some of the echo in here. The microphone I have is otherwise pretty damn good for me doing one-on-one recordings. If you've ever heard the videos on my main channel, I don't sound too bad in those, and that's because this mic's great for if you're just up front and speaking to it one-on-one. But trying to record several people in one room makes this a lot harder, and my room is already so small.
Yeah, when we do one of our 3-person podcasts. That's a tease for you.
Yeah, I
look forward to it.
I better hope that by the time we do a 3-person podcast, I will have moved into a different space.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, because, oh boy. But yeah, anyway, back to Eggman's Iron Jungle, his stupid fucking blimp. We just said fuck it to blowing up the blimp. I kind of wanted to do it because if we had done that, we would have gone into the Vector the Crocodile level and gotten that ending instead.
Well, I think we gave it such a try, though. Like, we really tried for it. It's just impossible.
Yeah, and we just said fuck it and did the neutral ending. At which point you have a brief boss fight with Eggman, who's in this big robot called the Egg Breaker. There are several bosses in this game, and by several I mean 3. But they're copied and pasted over the rest of the game, and each of them have a unique gimmick on each iteration. For instance, in this version of the Egg Breaker, he's standing on a platform in a big circular arena, and he shoots lasers out of his nipples. No joke. It's like either out of his nose or it's out of his chest. It's like 2 weird little lasers, and then when you shoot him enough, he jumps down, and then you just wail on him, and he dies. In our playthrough today, in the Eggman cyberspace level, his move is to spin around, conjure up 6 orbs, and yell, "You know what they say, the more the merrier!" Like a fucking, and he does this. He repeats this like a clock tower boss.
There was a moment when we were doing it in which he said it 4 times in a row with no pause in between them.
Yeah, and he just kept doing that. Yeah. Really a staple of excellent boss fight
it's
design.
A real homage to the "It's no use."
Oh my god, which was a year after this.
Yeah, exactly.
So clearly,
they brought everything that they learned on Shadow the Hedgehog.
That honestly fucking feels like it, Jesus. And we ended up and you end up just killing Eggman like relatively easily anyway. Then getting onto the final level of that neutral route, which is the lava shelter, where Shadow the Hedgehog has a few brief flashbacks to Sonic Heroes, where there's a bit in Sonic Heroes where Shadow finds a bunch of copies of himself in pods.
Right.
And I think even in Shadow the Hedgehog, there's a bit in a level where he teleports out from nowhere, looks up at like 12 copies of himself that are standing in a perfect line, and Eggman floats along and goes like, "I have made you shadow androids to protect me from Gun." And Shadow goes, "Well, am I an android?" And in the lava shelter, Shadow goes, "I guess I am an android, and I'm gonna kill my creator." And you go through this level where the 2 objectives are utterly fucking pointless because they lead you to 2 copies of the exact same ending, which is that you fight Dr. Eggman, whose robot is a slot machine. And
this is coming back to me now.
Yeah, and he goes, "That's right, Shadow. You're not a real you. You're a robot, and I made you to serve me." And then Shadow pushes the buttons on the slot machine to screw over Eggman. That's how you beat him. You oh my god, the fucking...
Yeah, you run the slots, man.
You run the slots, you gamble with Eggman, and then you fucking kill him.
Yeah.
Shadow the Hedgehog goes, I'm gonna lead your machine army to a new world, and he karate chops Eggman to death. And the credits roll with a weirdly more upbeat kind of credit song, where it's got this little mix of like EDM with rock, where it's a guy going like, I'm waking up, I'm breaking out, this is what it's like to be free. And
well, I guess the implication is that he's broken free of his master, right?
he has, yeah.
He's living his own life.
Yeah. So, but what you may notice about that neutral storyline is it sets up Black Doom, it sets up the gun commander, it sets up the president, it sets up all these sides of the world, and then goes, no, you're a robot. This has nothing to do with nothing.
Well, that's the thing I really want to pick at with this game, because I think it's the thing that I find the most interesting about it. And the closest comparison point that I can think of is Resident Evil 6. Which is a game that we will also talk about. And what I think is similar between the two of them is that they've both made a video game story, and then they've split it into a bunch of different parts. But instead of rewriting the story to make it all to have each story tell its own individual story that adds to a greater whole, they've just split the greater whole into a bunch of different parts.
They have, yeah. Which some argue that Shadow the Hedgehog should have just been one giant journey. But the fact that the game is kind of awful means that I'm kind of grateful that you can do one playthrough of this game in the space of about 2 hours.
Yeah, I mean, so we started playing the game before recording this podcast at like 2:30, I would say.
Yeah, and
we were done by like 4.
Yeah.
Or like 4:30.
4:30. Yeah, and that was kind of a godsend, frankly.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is in a way though, we didn't experience the entirety of Shadow the Hedgehog. There's a bunch more levels that we missed out on. And
that's true.
I wouldn't mind running down them a bit, because I think because you might think, oh, we've clearly just seen the worst parts of Shadow. We've seen some lackluster endings with some nonsensical combinations. Surely these other levels might, pick things up a bit.
Yeah, well, before we go into that, I just want to say that the thing that I take away from this game is that going through it twice, obviously the developers wanted you to go through the game 10 times so you could understand every piece of the story and put it all together.
Yeah.
But going through it twice, I just don't know what to think about the story of the game, because none of it made any sense.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's a complete jumbled mess where it's trying to juggle multiple outcomes for Shadow, which that's the thing with a lot of branching narratives in games. Is some storytellers like the idea of possibilities and going, what if you were allowed to experience different possibilities? The problem is that in most cases this becomes, what if the guy was good and what if the guy was bad?
Yeah.
Which was, not fun. So props to Shadow for being a bit bolder and having 10 different weird endings with their own nuances. And I kind of want to mention them a little bit as we talk about the rest of the levels, if that's okay with you.
Yeah. So Connor, I don't understand Shadow the Hedgehog. Piece it all together for me.
Alright. Westopolis, the beginning. We've briefly mentioned it. It's a city level. It's kind of like it looks like New York, but I think they try to imply it's like Seattle.
Yeah, I kind of get a West Coast vibe from it.
Yeah, and it's a brown and grey city level that is kind of meant to be a baseline and the sort of, they talk about in storytelling the idea of you need to have a normal world to make the extravagant world like more special.
Yeah.
It's probably what they're going for Westopolis.
Well, I kind of like it as a tone setter, weird as that is, because it is a level in which you're in like this war zone.
Yeah, no, that is a good thing about it, is it kind of sets up the stakes of the invasion, of the alien invasion. It's a really bombastic beginning. And it's just handled so poorly. It's also one of the few moments in the game where the gun soldiers are not shooting you. So that means you've only got to worry about aliens attacking you, or being blown up by random orbital lasers, which is a pain in the ass. The objectives to that are just scouring levels. They're just kill everything of a certain thing on the map.
Oh, and it's so tedious, man. It's like you've missed like one gun soldier in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. If you're familiar with a standard Sonic game, you might think, that's got to be a fucking nightmare. You've got to run back and you've got to run against the camera after doing all these loop-de-loops to do it. Thankfully, the save points in the level do let you teleport back, but you're still scouring the entire level trying to find the one guy you missed.
And it gets to the point in which you're playing a Sonic game and you're just walking slowly through the level.
Yeah.
Trying to find the one worm that you've missed.
I know, right? It's fucking awful.
Yeah.
Next after this, we briefly talked about the CIA mainframe level. It's the first of 2 data levels, which we've played both of in our playthroughs.
And I'd say even if I don't necessarily like any of the levels in terms of gameplay, I quite like the aesthetics of the cyber levels.
Yeah, the cyber levels are incredibly colourful. They're a massive contrast to the cities in that they are very vibrant. I especially like the Dr. Eggman one that we did, Mad Matrix it's called, because it opens up to this large sprawling level, which is annoying if you're sick of the game, is a fucking like devastating to see because you think, Jesus, this level's massive. But it is an area where you get a strange sense of scope that I really enjoy, of like, holy shit, look at the size of the internet. This is amazing.
Well, the one that comes to mind for me, was that the one we were doing today?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, there are 3 towers out in the distance. There's a blue tower, a red tower, and a green tower.
Yeah, and a yellow one as well.
Yeah, and a yellow one. And you just like, you ride these like cyber rails to each one. And it's actually kind of fun because you're not controlling Shadow.
Yeah, you have to kind of use the stick to go left and right. There's a little bit of that control.
You kind of achieve like that base level of what Sonic should be, which is you go fast.
Yeah. The only thing that's frustrating about those is if you are getting lost in it, then you find yourself trapped in there for a while.
Yeah.
But it's other than that, I prefer it over the CIA one, which is way more linear.
Yeah. Much more precision platforming as well.
It is, yeah. The dark route is it's an example of one of those levels where the good route is just finish half the level and the dark route is finish the whole thing.
Yeah.
Which is kind of tedious, to be honest. But like for the most part, aesthetically, that one is cool.
Yeah.
There's Glyphic Canyon we briefly mentioned. It's like a weird
it's like a Mayan temple.
Yeah, it's meant to be like a
with a loop-de-loop.
Yeah, with lots of loop-de-loops that just seem to be a thing in the Sonic world, that every ancient civilization or modern civilization has made a loop-de-loop, you know.
Yeah, and you get thrown around by a bunch of tornadoes, which are just there for some reason.
You do. The way that you progress in that level is if the path ends, you just see a tornado and Knuckles just goes, hey, just jump in.
No, we'll be fine, don't
worry.
You know,
it's fine. We'll live. We're Sonic characters. We'll just drop 10 rings and go.
Yeah.
That's a little aside. Most Sonic games, when you get hurt, you drop all of your rings. Shadow just goes, no, you drop 10. And
which is nice, yeah.
I much prefer that over most of the games.
Yeah.
But then there's Lethal Highway, which is if you make the good route on Westopolis to go, okay, cool, I've killed all the aliens in Westopolis. Lethal Highway is more Westopolis.
Yeah.
The difference is that it's on a giant road. Your objective is to either destroy a big alien car that's driving around, which is as tedious as the Eggman blimp, or it's get to the end of the level. But Lethal Highway is when they try to show off the vehicle mechanics in Shadow the Hedgehog.
Which we actually saw very little of.
We saw very little of because, simply put, they are pointless. Shadow runs faster than the vehicles. The only time they add anything is when they're like some there's like these jump mechs you can take that jump higher than you. Sometimes those are you need those. But like if you want to use the car or the motorcycle like the highway wants you to, the only reason to do that is if you want to keep at the exact same pace as the alien car to shoot at it.
Okay.
And that thing still takes forever. It's a really tedious level, all things considered, because it's technically timed. You're trying to beat it.
Yeah, if it escapes you, you fail the level.
You do, yeah. Then, besides from Prison Island that we briefly mentioned, which there's not much to say other than you ride these little flying saucers over goo.
PS2 couldn't handle it.
No, couldn't handle it. God, it was so slow. You then get the weird, wacky Eggman levels.
Yeah.
You get Eggman's Cryptic Castle, which is...
I really wish we had seen Eggman's Cryptic Castle.
We might just bring it up on YouTube and I can show you after the podcast, because that level is a weird, haunted castle. There's, like, red skies, everything. It's a weird blend of the cartoony Sonic style with Shadow the Hedgehog's grittiness.
It kind of reminds me, from what you're describing it, like the House of the Dead levels in Sonic Racing.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Those are more vibrant. That's the weird thing.
Weird.
Cryptic Castle is more gritty. And that level is either Eggman going, oh, light some torches for me, I guess. Or it's Amy Rose who's just in there. And she just goes, I'm looking for Cream.
Where's Cream?
We got lost in this spooky mansion.
Just for reference to the viewers, Cream is a rabbit.
Yeah, she's not after actual food.
She's like, Shadow, I'm trying to eat a souffle here.
Oh, Shadow, I'm trying to feed this souffle. I'm so fucking sorry, viewers. Anyway, The other one, which we were mentioning, was Eggman's Kooky Circus. It's
Eggman's Crazy Circus.
It's Crazy Circus, whatever the
And
fuck
he's
it's
like, Shadow, can you complete my fun minigames?
yeah, it's got shooting galleries, which that's a fun way of incorporating the gun thing, but it's so stupid.
It's all, I hate those shooting galleries.
They're really hard. Tails is there and he asks you to steal all of Eggman's money, which for the
he
record,
basically says like it'd be really funny if you stole all of Eggman's money.
yeah, if you steal 400 rings, which for the record, you get hit and you lose your rings, you lose them on the counter. If you die on that level,
we had collected like 250, and then I like homing attacked off the level.
Yeah,
all gone, all my rings.
Every single ring just bada boom gone.
Mwah.
And,
catch you later, rings.
And otherwise it's Eggman just asking you to shoot gun robots, and that's kind of boring. But
he's like, these gun robots are blowing up my theme park.
Yeah. I fucking love the circus level because a little bit like the cyberspace level, it is a more colourful level, but it sticks out so much more because it's the most cartoony level in the game.
Yeah, and the circus levels in Sonic are always good.
Yeah, they are.
They're vibrant and fun.
Yeah, Sonic Heroes has that casino level, which is a bit annoying to play, but is a really fun concept.
So does Sonic Rivals.
Oh, it does, doesn't it?
When you're racing Metal Sonic.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
fuck.
yeah.
God, I should play Rivals again.
Yeah, man, let's do it.
Yeah, that would be fun for the list. But I kind of like the circus just for being the weird outlier in the levels. It's a fascinating.
Yeah, and it wasn't
aspect.
too irritating either. Like, there's not much precision platforming. The enemies are kind of ineffectual. Like, it's kind of actually alright.
Yeah, there's grind levels and rails and things. Then I think it's probably worth us just tackling the levels by dark route, neutral dark, neutral good, and then good.
Well, take me through it, man.
All right. So the fully dark route, which we never did, starts with Central City. That level's weird. Both of the objectives on it, the good and the bad one, are both timed.
Okay.
The level is basically a square. It's a big like square ring.
What's it called?
It's called Central City. It is possibly the most boring level in the fucking game because it's a more boring version of Westopolis.
Yeah.
The kind of loop back idea is interesting for a Sonic level, but it's very tedious. Things still explode. It's still a overstimulating mess.
Yeah, yeah.
And I never want to do it. If I'm ever going for a full evil route, I specifically don't do the Cryptic Castle evil thing just so that I don't have to do Central City.
Well, that's the thing that's kind of cool about it, is that you don't have to go through the routes in a very regimented way.
No.
If you want to skip an annoying level, you can kind of work your way around it.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah. The next level in that evil route is called The Ark, which is kind of rad, actually. It's actually a pretty good level because it's very reminiscent of Sonic Adventure 2's Ark's levels. You're going through a bunch of really fast grind rails. You're riding this alien birds to go after these like gun drones and things.
Yeah.
And you have a boss fight with a big mech that's a reference to like one of the mechs you fight in Sonic Adventure 2.
Okay.
So that level's like a really nice homage to that game.
Clearly, we should have been playing Sonic Adventure 2.
Well, that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Is Sonic Adventure 2 is. Some people say that game has aged just as poorly as this, but like it seems to be a lot better. And then the last level is Gun Fortress. The implication being that the Black Arms are assailing the last bastion of humanity.
Yeah, it's like it's like the second Matrix film.
It is, yeah. They're like the president is being protected by the gun commander. Rouge the Bat is there, and
just like the Fall of Rome.
Yeah, and the mechs are now all like RoboCop mechs. They're trying to fight the black aliens and everything. That leads you to two possible ending fights.
Yeah. One
with Sonic and the Gun Commander, where the Gun Commander is piloting another big cartoony mech.
Because that's the only boss fight they know.
Yeah, it's the only one that they know. While Sonic is there to be a platform for you to homing attack to attack his head.
Why is Sonic letting you fight the Gun Commander?
He's trying to stop you.
Oh, but you use him as like a tool.
Yeah, which is fucking hysterical. That
he's what a win, Sonic.
Yeah, he's less helpful than he's more of a hindrance than a help.
Yeah.
And the other one, and if you do that, Shadow goes like, "Yes, I'm going to destroy humanity alongside Black Doom," and the final cutscene is the big laser cannon in space, the space colony arc that in Sonic Adventure 2 blows up half the moon. it gets fired on Washington DC or whatever it's called,
Yeah.
and blows up the White House and like everyone in it, and this massive bit of the city. Like that's the most evil ending.
Yeah.
However,
I guess is that Black Doom's big plan?
it seems to be. It's to
Yeah.
wipe out all human resistance so he can be an evil alien that conquers humanity. It's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
However, if you decide, oh wait, Rouge the Bat is hot, I'm gonna help out humanity
And
again.
she is.
Yeah, she is, yeah. Bat boobs. I'm cutting that out.
I'm cutting it back in.
Oh my god. The veto.
Yeah.
Instead, you fight Black Doom, and he goes, what the fuck?
We were doing such good work together.
At which point Shadow goes, no, I'm gonna rule as the evil dictator over humanity, and only the strongest will survive. And it's
Lead me to heaven when we die.
Lead me to heaven when we die. God, this game had a ton of Breaking Benjamin AMVs over it. Like this
game blew me away.
It did.
Yeah.
Oh my fucking god. Jesus, what? This is taking me back. So that's the most evil routes.
Yeah.
There's then the neutral evil routes, which is the Doom, another flashback level with Maria, where it's when Gunn is attacking her and she wants you to like heal some scientists while Black Doom is going, kill them all, Shadow, kill them all, and he eggs you on to go and do that. There is the mission where you have to kill the president.
A classic. Truly, they've never gone better than that.
Yeah. The president is on a weird plane that's on a rail and you have to shoot him. And while Tails is running around going, no, Shadow,
you shouldn't kill the president.
And then the final level of the neutral route is it's called like Black Comet. And it's you being on the big alien ship that's like a gigantic comet, where you basically just either like you kill the aliens on there and fight Black Doom again.
Yeah.
Or you or Eggman is there for some reason.
Or Eggman is there.
Yeah, Eggman has nothing to do with the plot at that point. He just jumps in and is just like, I don't know.
I want to do a thing.
I have to be the fight here because I built this big gambling robot. I'm going to fight you on this comet. It's the most out of nowhere of any of the boss fights, and I kind of love it for the ghoul of that.
I love the implication of there are two routes before you. One of them leads you to salvation. The other Eggman is there.
Yeah, basically. That's the two paths in life.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put a little edit of that. There's a meme of these two castles. I'm gonna put that image there. Of that. There's then the neutral route, which we've already described. It's the sky battle, the iron jungle with Eggman and his blimp, and then the lava shelter where you just kill Eggman.
Yeah.
Then there's the neutral good route, which I think we've talked about most of those levels already. Mad Matrix and the one where the arc is just blowing up.
Yeah.
The thing is...
And Lost Impact.
And Lost Impact. Well, Lost Impact is actually on the goodest good path.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing.
Oh, yeah, we made a brief divergence, didn't we?
And the reason I did is because the level in between those two is just another arc level.
Oh.
Shadow the Hedgehog has, out of its 22 levels, has 5 arc levels.
Yeah.
2 of them are flashbacks, 3 of them are just the arc from Sonic Adventure 2, basically, like, reused assets and shit. Which I didn't want you to go through that because that would have just been more boring.
That's what's so fascinating about it, man, is that you have to look at this little flowchart and be like, alright, what's the least annoying way to get to the ending that I want?
Yeah. Like, as far as I'm aware, that level is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But but that's the thing, is that it's drab, and Shadow the Hedgehog, like, to get you on board with, like, this game being kind of a bit of a nuisance, I kind of wanted to show you the highs and lows of it, and not just the middling bits.
Well, you gotta show me the breadth, the depth, you know? All that Shadow has to offer.
Yeah. I think, it's a whole fucking weird thing. But then, and at which point, in a similar fashion, we did the boss fight at the end of those levels where it was Black Doom and Shadow gets depressed.
Yeah.
The other one is that Eggman is on there, and it's kind of thematic because he talks about how his grandfather made Shadow.
Okay.
And it doesn't confirm Shadow being a robot. He just goes, oh yeah, my grandfather made you, and I'm gonna reclaim his birthright before the arc blows up.
His grandfather, Gerald Robotnik.
Yeah, Gerald Robotnik. I think he has some middle name, but who cares? And then there's the mega good route, where the Black Arms have been cornered into a jungle, and you work with Rouge the Bat to basically wipe them out.
It's a Vietnam War situation.
Basically, yeah. You fight this ginormous, weird worm creature with wings called Black Bull, which seems to be the most powerful Black Arm, and it's a fucking stupid fight. You, like, grind around on rails and shit as you go and fight him. And again, what I love about Shadow the Hedgehog is it has the ghoul for you to be like, alright, you've pivoted this far into being the goodest guy. What if at the very last second you just decide to follow Black Doom and you become an arsehole again?
So yeah, what is the Black Doom good ending?
The Black Doom good ending, because the final level is a similar comet one, like the one we've mentioned before. Like they use that biome twice as well, and that level fucking blows. It's really boring. If you get to that comet and Black Doom goes, actually work with me, it'll be cool, you just decide to fight Sonic and the Gun Commander as well, because as far as they're aware, you've pivoted into being a bad guy again.
Yeah.
And that's when Shadow the Hedgehog goes, I'm gonna rule humanity as a benevolent dictator.
Oh my god.
Yeah!
He becomes a philosopher king.
Yeah, he says he's gonna use the Chaos Emeralds to lead humankind into a better age that Maria would have wanted. And that's kind of like...
And you gotta respect the nuance, right?
Yeah.
Where it lets you go down the good path and then take the twisted good path and the benevolent evil path.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's really interesting in that way.
Yeah, whereas the alternative is where you just fight Black Doom there and he just goes, and you and Sonic just defeat the Black Arms for good. And that's the kind of more drab one of them.
And then they go, yeah, I won!
What, like the end of Faces of Evil? I would love that. Oh, man. I've said we should play the CDI games on the list before, but...
I look forward to it, dear listeners.
Oh, now that I've said it, oh god, I can force that.
Yeah.
Zelda CDI.
We've now promised it, so...
We're gonna play that.
Just the same way that we're gonna play Kingdom Hearts.
No! Oh, damn it. Well, my kingdom has fallen, but...
It's fine, you can edit it out.
It's a worthy cause. Those are the levels of Shadow the Hedgehog. And yeah, I think I agree with you that the idea that they kind of let you show the nuance of, fuck it, you can do a weird different ending.
Yeah.
That's cooler than, just having a pure good and a pure bad path.
Yeah, the idea that you can be walking down the path of good and you suddenly pull back, and the game has the flexibility to be like, oh, here's what would happen.
Yeah, and I kind of respect it for that, but at the same time, it's tied to such a clunky, poorly thought out, poorly made game that barely works and is absolutely ludicrous in premise.
Yeah, well, you're saying there's 22 levels, right?
Yeah.
But it really does just feel like they just wrote a normal story and then took all of the parts and just scrambled them all over the place.
Yeah, because you can jump between all of these.
Yeah.
You can start doing that evil route and then just decide, nah, I'm going to suddenly pivot into being a good guy, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And the fact that the neutral paths always seem to lead to Eggman is always just a wild,
all neutral paths lead to Eggman.
They do. The road to hell is paved with Eggmans.
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 Yeah.
But, Ash, the worst part of this is the fact that you can get these 10 endings and decide, oh, I like the idea of Shadow becoming a benevolent dictator. Or you like the idea that he's going to become a weird, loner and he's going to regret his choices while Vector the Crocodile is patting him on the back. Those don't matter. Those aren't canon.
No.
There's a
That's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
That ain't on the wiki.
Nah. There's a final story level. And it's just the Black Comet.
What's it called?
It's called Final Horn, I think? Or The Last Way or something like that.
Way, yeah.
And it's just...
It's called Bill Clinton's The Third Way.
It's not... you have to beat all 10 levels. It's not tied to one playthrough. You just have a separate level you can play.
Do you have to... So you haven't got to do another full playthrough. You just unlock the last level.
Yeah, you just unlock the last level.
That's nice.
Which presumably is following the pure good route, because it's Shadow confronting Black Doom on the comet, and Black Doom using, mega mind powers he suddenly had to stun everyone with, time stop or whatever.
Yeah.
That's when a recording from Gerald Robotnik plays, where he says, Shadow, I made you to protect humanity, and Maria appears on screen and says, Shadow from the future, I believe in you, and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's when Shadow uses the 7 Chaos Emeralds to go Super Shadow, and he fights a mega big, Black Doom alien in the sky, in a supersonic boss fight that most of the Sonic games have as a typical, ending.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And it's really boring. as an ending because it's exactly what you would expect. It's just okay.
I'm thinking about all the other games I think about that have a story flow section, and all the best ones always have a thing of like, it makes the necessity of a flowchart into a story element, in which the true ending is you breaking out of the story chart to find a true path.
Yeah.
Where this is trying to do the same thing, but it's just, guess what? You beat the villain again.
Yeah, the status quo has to be restored.
Yeah.
Shadow has to be brooding, but he needs to at least remember who he is.
Yeah.
Because Sonic Heroes, they imply that Shadow doesn't remember who the fuck he is, because of the story of that game. And that's the thing, like, this game, another reason that the Sonic team wanted to develop this is because they said there was a bunch of plot beats in the Shadow storyline.
They wanted to resolve mysteries.
Yeah, the unresolved threads, which, a bit like Resident Evil 6, was completely unnecessary.
Yeah. That's going to be an episode.
Oh my god, yeah. So, we've gone through most of the plot. I do want to briefly pivot into us talking about characters. We've mentioned them briefly, but I want to just iterate on some of my like favorite little bits and pieces on them. For one thing, the fact that basically every character from Sonic Hero shows up except for Metal Sonic and Big the Cat.
Well, they made the right choice.
They did.
They understood what the fans wanted, and that's Charmy the Bee.
For some reason, Charmy makes the cut.
And now he's a hacker?
Yeah, I guess, like the Team Chaotix, which is SBO, Charmy, and Vector, they all want to... Like, they're no longer guns for hire, they've just decided they're gonna steal all of Eggman's data. For apparently no reason. Just spite, I guess.
Yeah, well, where was Storm the Albatross, is all I'm saying.
He was in Sonic... That game came out after this, so...
Yeah, it's actually on the back of the manual as an advertisement for Sonic Riders.
Yeah, Storm the Albatross and Wave the Swallow? And Jet the Hawk?
Yeah, whatever, man.
Yeah, whatever. Look, I was once a Sonic fan, and I say once as though I can shed that title. Like, that's a... The fact that
that will stick with you until the day you die.
I know. Oh, actually, you know what, Ash?
What's up?
Instead of talking about the characters in this game, I want to take a moment to use this as a moment to expose myself and to confess.
Alright.
Because I've been fairly open about the fact that this was a game that I grew up with and I thought Shadow was the coolest shit.
Yeah.
As a result, as someone that as a child that liked making things and got enamored in fictional worlds, I found out about Sonic OCs on the internet.
And you said, I gotta get a piece of that pie.
I did. And I wanna briefly just talk about the fact that I did that shit.
Yeah. And you had the boldness to show us at school.
I know! You did, like, I basically, I went up to you and, like, a few of our friends, I was like, I drew these cool Sonic OCs, what do you think of them? And you were just like,
I mean, weren't we supposed to voice them?
Yeah, I wanted to make my original idea of wanting to jump into YouTube was to make an animated series about the Sonic OCs, primarily because I'd seen other people do that, and I thought there's no way you can get away with doing that, and then people did. And I was like, yeah, Ash, I want you to voice my main character, and they were all quite lazy recolors. Like, basically the male characters, I would just give them clothes that I would normally wear. And the female character was like, alright, this is just Blaze the Cat, but, like, she is blue now.
And I think the thing that's important to take away from this is that despite this terrible start, we're still friends today. I
know, I exposed you to that.
That glow up.
Yeah, and yet, I felt a certain level of regret because, I'm quite sentimental about the things that I used to make, and I've got like a pretty big archival of both old projects I made when I was a child on my computer, but also drawings and things. Most of the art of those Sonic OCs, I remember the day I shredded them.
Wow.
Where they exist only as a memory now. And
is this fucking end of Titanic?
Yeah. when I took my valuable pendant of like a Sonic
they're gonna
OC.
extract a safe from the ruins of your house and find a naked picture of Blaze the Cat.
Listen, Blaze the Cat was pretty hot.
Because she does fire.
She's fire.
That's why she's called Blaze.
And she can play around in the Himalayas for hours.
Is that what that guy says in that weird video?
That is what Guptil89 says. In the please, if you want a treat in Sonic cringe, please watch Guptil89 top 10 hottest female Sonic characters, because it's a blast. I love
Honestly,
that video.
I think just to pad out the runtime, you should play that entire video in the editing process.
Oh my god,
just put it in the middle somewhere.
Oh no.
We need to make this podcast as disconnected and hard to follow as Shadow the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
So you've got to put a bunch of random bullshit in the middle of all these sections.
I know. Although that's the thing, I wanna go back to our kind of structure because I want to just talk briefly about the gun commander.
All right, please lay the law down on the gun commander.
Just that, like, because he doesn't appear in anything ever again.
No, he's like this very obvious stereotypical military man. He's wearing like a big suit and he's got like a grey buzz cut.
Yeah, as we mentioned in one of the endings, they give you some glimpse into his like tragic backstory, and that kind of thing.
And he's like the creepiest little boy anyone's ever seen.
He is.
With these horrible doll-like eyes.
He does, both of which are different colors. He's
Yeah.
got heterochromia,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a cat. And it's just like, fuck me, man. You were mentioning Sonic X briefly, that we watched that. I think the further we go into Sonic X, if we go back to watching that, the more we're gonna find out how much that show influenced this game.
Oh, like the future direction of like Sonic's tone and characters and stuff.
Yeah, it's the weird bridge between Sonic Adventure 2 and this, because they go into Gun. There's like a lady cop who is like friends with Rouge.
Well, I remember the cop division that rides sick motorbikes and they like chase down Sonic on this highway.
They do.
Yeah.
And they go into a bunch of stuff about Shadow and the Ark and aliens and all of this shit. And it kind of, the fact that people seem to really enjoy that show clearly convinced Sonic Team, well, fuck, we've got to make a Shadow game. Yeah. This is the direction people want, and it leads to a mess.
An absolute mess.
An absolute mess of a game that is very much flawed by design, because people found this game's premise fucking ludicrous.
Yeah, I think this game, if it's ever mentioned at all in the modern era, like you were saying that people don't talk about it as much as Forces, Boom, and 06. But if people do mention it, it is always as a meme.
Yeah,
that was the Sonic game with the gun.
Yeah, remember the Sonic gun game.
Yeah.
And
that'd be a good name for a game.
The Sonic gun game.
The Sonic gun game.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind talking a little bit about the Maria subplot, if that's cool with you.
I guess the Maria subplot is intrinsic to Shadow as a character. It's really the defining moment in his life.
Sonic Adventure 2 implies that Maria was dying of something.
Right, yeah.
But I think they imply it's an illness.
Okay.
But that, Gun still went to the Ark and they arrested Gerald Robotnik and threw him in jail. Shadow the Hedgehog just goes, nah, man, they fucking shot that girl. And I swear to God, the Sonic 3 movie, it's gonna have Shadow in it.
Yeah.
If they do not show that girl getting shot in that movie, I will do nothing about it. But I will be upset.
It's something that I find endlessly weird, though, because it's such a level of moral complication that Sonic doesn't need. That, like, the forces of humanity marshaled their troops to shoot a child.
Yeah, they did. Which, if we pretend that Sonic was meant to be something that's smarter than it actually is, and it's not just Yuji Naka making a bunch of Dragon Ball references, then you could argue it's meant to be a commentary on NATO.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, the UN peacekeepers showed up in a place and killed some people when they weren't meant to, but that's absolutely not the stint that they're going for.
Like, their stories are always in the complete paddling pool of, look, it's an evil man, and he's going bleh.
Yeah, I know. It would be completely fucking tasteless if that was what they were thinking.
Yeah.
Because they'd be like, okay, cool, you're trying to make a commentary about war crimes in Sonic the Hedgehog, and your allegories are a bunch of cartoon hedgehogs and a man with a big mustache called Eggman.
It's just so amateurish, man. I don't know what they were thinking. It just seems like it wasn't made in the right way.
No, it absolutely wasn't. And I kind of love the ghoul of this game for existing.
Yeah.
But
I'm definitely glad it exists. If only because it's very funny.
Exactly. Sega kind of half-assedly learnt their mistake. And by that I mean they went, okay, a gun was a bit too far. Right. What if Sonic with a sword?
Check it out.
And they did like shit like Sonic and the Black Knight afterwards.
Well, that's the thing, because they launched from Shadow the Hedgehog not into a new era of them learning the error of their ways. They made even more complete bullshit.
Sonic 06 is very much rife with that.
Yeah.
They lean so much into the real world aspect. They have more weird magic shit in it.
There's like a human woman who the main character is friends with.
Yeah, and eventually love interest.
Yeah. And there's even like a non-Eggman threat.
Yeah, and they have there's a non-Eggman threat, which is this big
Mephistopheles or whatever his name is.
Yeah, Mephiles the Dark.
Yeah, Memphis, Tennessee.
Which Shadow has to fight. That Shadow storyline, a bit like the Black Doom shit. And, like, just, fuck me, what a game. The president is in this game.
The president is in this game.
The president who trusted Sonic and Shadow with his life in Sonic Adventure 2. He is heartbroken and can hardly believe it when Shadow turns on him and the entirety of humanity because, I don't know, an alien showed up.
It's just one of those games. I feel like we were trying to look up the development history in an effort to kind of understand what went wrong. And it just feels like the more and more we dig into it, the only answer is they just fucked it up.
Yeah.
They had time and money and people to work with it. They just made something bad.
I mean, I would argue that Shadow the Hedgehog was always going to be made fun of for its sheer premise.
Yeah.
And in a way...
we could have been living in a world where it was like Strangers of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin.
Yes.
In which it is very memeable, but the game is still quite good.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Is that you still have a good time playing it. But it's just the fact that Sega still hadn't figured out how to make Sonic games in this kind of 3D era. As much as Adventure 1 and 2 are beloved, the fact that they moved away from that formula means there must have been some doubt about those formulas holding up. And
it just feels like an era in which they just didn't know what to do with Sonic. And they were just flailing around, throwing ideas at the wall, like, what if he's a knight? What if he's in Arabia? What if he's a werewolf?
Yeah, which, debatably, they'd had that since Sonic 3.
Yeah, exactly right.
Where they just didn't know what to do. And eventually, when they found something that was unanimously praised, which was Generations and, I guess, Colors as well, they then went, well, we can't just do that, right? Because Mario doesn't get to just do that. Like if every Mario game was Mario 64, people would find it boring.
Mario 64, yeah.
So they then went, Lost World, no.
Boom,
no. Forces, you know. Which that's an interesting one because I feel like Forces was a game they didn't want to make and they made because they thought people would like it.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, Forces, right? Because it was released the same year as Mania, and Mania kind of sucked up all the Sonic air of being the really good return to form, and then Forces was just like, what have we got?
Yeah.
Not something good.
And they haven't made a new Mania or anything like that since.
No, they made Sonic Frontiers.
Which some people argue is great, but it doesn't seem to have left that much of a mark, given that it's been about, at the time of recording, it's been about 6 months since Frontiers came out.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think there's only really one way they can revitalize the Sonic series.
And what's that, my friend?
I think they need to make Shadow the Hedgehog 2, baby.
Yeah.
Just take all the lessons that they learned from this game.
Take a leaf out of Square Enix's book.
And just make this.
And make Stranger of Paradise Shadow the Hedgehog.
I would love that.
Shadow of Paradise.
That's the thing. This game's ruined me.
Yeah.
I have become a malformed man, as it were, that loves the idea of an actually good Shadow the Hedgehog.
Yeah, no, you're desperate for a good version of this game because the premise is beautiful. It's delightful. Like,
and I want it to own it.
Yeah.
I don't want them to go, isn't it crazy that I've got a gun? No, I want them to fucking just go straight-faced, all out. Here is Shadow on a motorcycle doing sick flips, and he goes through a ring of fire into fucking Dr. Eggman's Evil Knievel circus while fighting a bunch of aliens.
Because that's the thing. I think that's what makes Sonic, at the very least, interesting to watch from afar. Because these ideas are all crazy, and they're so much fun to watch them try them. And you're just like, I don't want to play any of your games, but god damn it, Sega, you're doing good work.
Yeah, exactly.
He was a werewolf, man.
Sonic was a fucking werewolf.
Like, they made a game where Shadow had a gun and he fucking kills the president. Like, it's so fascinating to watch. And I'm not happy that I played this game twice because it made my head hurt. But I'm glad that I had the experience.
Honestly, that's the thing, is I can't claim that. Because, frankly, it feels as though in this process, it was a process of me basically torturing you for no good reason.
It's because I tricked you into playing Clock Tower.
That is true, I suppose. But I thought genuinely we'd have an ironic fun time with this. But this game also hurt me when, like, as I said, I've beaten this game 12 times. But when I was growing up and becoming a teenager, I was like, I remember liking Shadow as a kid, and I played it. And that game, it gave me a fucking headache then.
Yeah.
I'd play through the fucking boring, like, Black Comet levels where everything looks the fucking same, and I'd just be like, oh, jeez.
Like, what did I see in this?
Oh my god, like, I guess it's not Heroes, which at that point, maybe I need to revisit Heroes and give it a proper chance, because, this isn't worth it by comparison.
Yeah.
I think this is a decent pivot onto our conclusion.
It's a difficult game to conclude on. I feel like for me it represents so many different things about the era of games, the era of Sonic, the era of culture. It's just something about it that I can't put my finger on. Like, this game frazzles my brain in a way that is a little concerning. So trying to conclude on it, like, would I recommend this game to others? No, but also yes. If you don't respect yourself, you should give it a try.
Yeah, I think the Shadow the Hedgehog is fascinating, and this is a bit of a recurring theme in some of my commentaries about games to recommend. But this is one where I absolutely think if you want to know why Shadow the Hedgehog is bad, don't just watch the cutscenes on YouTube or watch someone play it.
No, because you won't understand.
Yeah, do try it. The PlayStation 2 port is perhaps the worst of all, and yet it's probably the best-selling one.
Yeah, probably.
And it's like £6, and it might be worth giving that a shot and going, ooh.
If you're approaching it like you're a mortician, and you're observing why something died and why it looks that way, that might be a good angle to approach it from, but other than that, I would probably stay away.
Yeah, again, this is hard to recommend. I don't think I would recommend it from like an angle of, oh, play this because it's worth playing for the experience. It's only worth doing if you want to know the lows of the Sonic series.
Yeah, because I think we're talking about it in this podcast format, and we're getting all excited and passionate about how stupid the story is and how bad it all is. And it's kind of leading me to want to say you should play it. But I just need to cast my mind back to actually playing it. And just sitting there and just being like, I'm not having a good time. I hate this game so much.
No. And yet it's fascinating. I appreciate the Shadow the Hedgehog has been a part of my life for worse.
Yeah, that's kind of the power of the list, right? Is that it lets us experience games like this.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, let's get on to the thing I'm always hung up about, which is about where we would put it on our rankings. Where would you put Shadow the Hedgehog on quality?
Quality, it's almost the worst game I've ever played. There are a few that might just beat it out. A few Kinect games that we'd like to bring up later.
Oh my god, yeah.
But this game just doesn't work.
No.
Like it's not fun to play. It's a nightmare to look at. It's not well designed.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah, Shadow the Hedgehog barely functions. You can beat the game.
Yeah.
But for all of its failures in design, as well as in intent, and, you know, when you consider the tone and how it compares to the rest of the series, this is low, if not bottom. It's one of the worst.
It's just an inherently misconceived product.
Absolutely. But as for interesting, where would you put it?
It's got to be quite high, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because it's so interesting. It's like, how did a big budget studio working on one of the most premier franchises in all of video games make something like this?
Yeah.
Like, how do they do this?
Yeah, I think you might find this as a recurring trend on my rankings. But games where I find it fascinating how they failed are ones I find very, very interesting, and I would put this very high as well.
Exactly.
Great
soundtrack too.
But as for fun,
that is so difficult
to quantify. Yeah,
I had no fun playing this game. I think there are so many points in which I would just like lie back in the sofa, give you the controller, and be like, "You fucking do it."
Yeah,
and the playing this game is not fun for me. It's it's anathema to fun. It's a terrible experience. Yeah. But it's fun in a kind of outside, like, that was stupid.
Yeah, if we were going it purely by our sessions, I think this would be quite high on fun.
Yeah.
It's not particularly fun to play, but I would say that there is something endearing about it's the mess of it that it is.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of fun, I would put it at like low pushing medium.
If you can get you and a friend together, maybe have a few beers, like late at night after work, just play Shadow the Hedgehog, I think you'll have a good time.
I think so as well. So long as you're willing to look at it from a lens of, okay, this is going to be trash.
Yeah, exactly.
And I do recommend maybe having a backup game in case that falls through, you know?
Maybe Clock Tower 3.
Maybe Clock Tower 3, that might be a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one to go for. But yeah, as far as that's concerned, I will say one thing that kind of that endears me to Shadow the Hedgehog despite all of its sort of faults and flaws, which is the fact that this game's soundtrack wrapped around from me loving it as a kid to me going, oh, this is the most cliche emo metal nonsense that has ever been. God, why I was so cringe for liking it. To now me going,
you know what?
Yeah, this was my time.
Well, you reach that point as an adult when you realize you can just like things.
You can.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what it means or how lame it is. You can just have a good time.
And you know what? Black-hearted evil, brave-hearted hero. I am all. I am. Thank you for listening to the podcast, everybody. Ash, would you like to promote anything on the podcast today?
Well, I'd like to talk about two things. Firstly is that we're actually going to be doing something interesting for the next episode of the podcast.
Ah, yeah.
Which is we're going to make our first return to a recent game that we've been playing. Because currently we've been doing... Resident Evil 4 was like a middle game. And then Clock Tower 3 and Shadow were the first two games that we played.
Yeah.
But next week, we're actually going to be... Well, next week. Whenever we do it, we're going to be doing a game that we recently finished, which is actually quite modern, which is Signalis.
Yes, and that should be good fun.
Yes, it's something that I'm really looking forward to talking about. You know, it's very much made for me. It's a huge throwback to classic survival horror. It's got a really great aesthetic. There are lesbians in it.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. And yeah, I think that'll be a really fun one for us to cover. It will be just talking about a really fucking good game.
Exactly, yeah.
Unless it falls apart at the ending, I don't fucking know.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
We're not done playing it yet, so no spoilers.
No,
we'll be done by the time this is out, but
yeah,
that's fine. I also have been doing a little more writing recently. So if you want to visit my blog, I'm sure there'll be a link in the description. It's going to be a very weird hodgepodge of things, but if you're curious, come on down. The last thing I wrote was a 10,000 word review of Fatal Frame 3. The next thing I'm writing is an essay on whether or not morality matters.
Fucking hell.
So yeah, that's the kind of net that I'm casting.
I mean, Shadow the Hedgehog was a good game to play.
Yeah, it's really crystallized some of my opinions about more.
Perfect.
God.
As for myself, you can check out some of my main content on my main channel, ThunderPsyker, where I'm currently in development of a few new videos and stuff that I will be very excited to put out very soon. You can also have a listen to the other episodes of The List Goes on this channel as well. Episodes 1 and 2 should be uploaded, as well as...
yeah, you've betrayed me.
Oh, yes, with the other podcast, Return to Sender, if you're looking for something a little bit more freeform and loose. The first episode of which of that show should be on remakes. That we go into that a lot. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of The List Goes On. Please check out the other episodes that we have done if you're interested in hearing more. We had a lot of fun recording this episode of the podcast, so very much looking forward to next week. And Shadow the Hedgehog may be 1 step forward and 2 steps back for the Sonic series, but I'm certain that Signalis will be incredible. If you can see all of me, walk into my mystery, step inside and hold on for dear life.
Fantastic. Goodbye to you all. Make good choices. And we'll see you next week.
Here we go, buddy. Here we go. This song is fucking stupid.